Diabetes Connections is brought to you by One Touch. Every touch is a step forward. By Dexcom. Take control of your diabetes and live life to the fullest with Dexcom. And by Real Good Foods. Real food you feel good about eating.
This is Diabetes Connections with Stacey Sims.
This week, we're tackling your Halloween questions. Moira McCarthy and I are back with Ask the DMoms. This is a stressful holiday, especially for newer diagnosed families, but it doesn't have to be.
How did you manage it before? People must get sick of me saying that, but how did you manage it before? Did you let your child come home and eat the whole thing of candy in one night? Probably not, right? So what you have to do is what every good parent does. Take out all the Snickers for yourself.
Yeah, we call that the parent tax, but I get anything with coconut. I get all the Almond Joy. Nobody likes those anyway but me. We'll answer questions about that giant candy stash, how to handle lows while your little kids are running around the neighborhood, and how to handle well-meaning neighbors who don't really get it. And tell me something good. A good beat, even blindfolded, and a follow-up that lets us say yes to the question, is there a doctor in the house? This podcast is not intended as medical advice. If you have those kinds of questions, please contact your healthcare provider. Welcome to Diabetes Connections. I am your host, Stacey Sims. So glad to have you along. We aim to educate and inspire about type 1 diabetes by sharing stories of connection. A big welcome to those of you I met this past weekend at the Friends for Life conference in Falls Church, Virginia. I had to skip that last year, so I'm really glad to have been able to go back to meet all of you and to honestly take advantage of that conference. The Friends for Life conferences are just chock full of amazing speakers, great information, and my favorite thing in the world, that in-person connection, right? So great to meet so many of you. And I know as you're listening, whether you were at Friends for Life or not, you're thinking, Halloween, isn't it a little early for that? I mean, Stacey, it's the second week of October. We get it. Just thought it would be great to be prepared, to be able to maybe do a little planning if these questions were on your mind. And I don't know about your community, but it seems like Halloween starts before September is even over. You know, the pumpkin patch pops up, the hay rides are going, the candy is everywhere, and that doesn't even stop until January from this point on. So that's why we thought the Ask the DMoms this month would be great, dedicated to Halloween. So thank you for your questions. I really hope that we can help. If you're new to the show, please consider joining the Facebook group. That is the best way to stay up on everything that goes on with this show. I do have a weekly newsletter as well. If you're not on social media, you can get to both just by going to the website, diabetes-connections.com. The newsletter is one of those pop-up things. If you click around the website long enough, I think it's like 20 seconds, the newsletter sign up will pop right up. And joining the Facebook group is also on the webpage. But of course, if you're on Facebook, just search for Diabetes Connections, the group. And I'm talking about ways to stay in touch right here at the top, because with the world's worst diabetes mom out this month and shipping, I want to be able to keep you posted on everything about that. So real quick, the book is on the website, diabetes-connections.com. That and my appearances are the only way to get it until November. On November 3rd, we go on Amazon, and the ebook will launch, and the audiobook will follow shortly thereafter. It is possible it'll launch the same day as everything else, but I think the audiobook might be a little behind, so I'll definitely keep you posted with the newsletter and with the Facebook group. To say I'm excited about this is a little bit of an understatement. I am jumping out of my skin because not only is my book finally getting out there, but my book is finally getting out there. So, you hope people like it, but you worry, what's the response going to be? How are people going to feel when they read it? So I cannot wait to hear from you. Please let me know what you think. We'll be talking about it a lot more, I am sure. All right, Diabetes Connections is brought to you by One Touch. Have you ever tested your blood sugar with a meter and were unsure about the meaning of your result? Take the guesswork out of your numbers with the One Touch VarioFlex meter. It uses ColorSure technology to instantly show you when your or your loved one's blood sugar numbers are low, indicated by blue, in range, green, or high red, so you can quickly get on with your life. You can also use the meter's built-in Bluetooth smart technology to seamlessly sync with the One Touch Reveal mobile app, available now as a free download for Android devices on Google Play and Apple devices on the App Store. One Touch, because taking a step forward starts with seeing where you are. Moira, yay, great to talk to you. I'm always so excited when we can get together, even virtually.
I know. It's good to hear your voice. I wish I was seeing your face, but I do see your face on my computer screen, so.
I'll try to smile through it. So to get ready for this, I was looking through some old photo albums, and then it made me really sad because I love Halloween, and I loved when my kids were little and dressed up. I miss it. I really do. It's so silly, but fun.
I know, the little things we do. I have two really good diabetes Halloween stories. Then we'll answer everybody's questions. The first one is Lauren was diagnosed right around Halloween 22 years ago. Wow. And the hospital, that was back when kids were on NPH and regular, known now that people call it as Walmart insulin, but that was the way that you were treated. And you did have a strict schedule. So the hospital, Lauren was one of two kids with type 1 newly diagnosed, and they had trick or treat at all the nurses' stations. Oh. So they went off trick or treating. And when Lauren came back to the room, she had this wagon with like more toys than she has ever got for Christmas in her life. And all the other kids were crying, saying, I want diabetes, Mom. And then the second one is, so then the first time she went trick-or-treating for Halloween, I decided that, again, that was back when things were different, and we're going to talk about that. I decided I would give her 10 cents for every piece of candy in her Halloween bucket, whatever you call it. Right. Well, word got out around the neighborhood, mostly because the local news station did a story on it. And my neighbors, to punk me, all bought her huge bags of candy. So I ended up owing her like, I don't know, $70. Like, thanks, neighbors. But the good news is those things are a thing of the past, and that's what we're going to talk about today.
That
right?
is hysterical. I love it. Yeah, Benny was diagnosed in December, pretty much right after Thanksgiving. And when I look back on the last Halloween without diabetes, I mean, he was a baby. He was 21, 22 months old. But my daughter was Ariel, you know, the Little Mermaid, and he was Flounder, the little fish friend, right? It was like the last time I was able to make them a pair costume.
Will you share that picture on the site?
I will, because what's great about it is he adored, it was like a zippy little warm jacket was the Flounder costume, and the hood was the head. It was perfect and easy for a not yet 2-year-old, and he wore it for a year. He loved that thing, and he wore it everywhere. But on Halloween itself, he was super unhappy. He would go from being excited to be running around, and, you know, they know what Halloween is even at that age, and then he would just sit down and cry or be grumpy, and at the time we were thinking, what is going on? Like, doesn't this kid get it? And of course, now looking back, he was in the beginning stages. So I look back at those pictures and I laugh and I feel terrible. But I'll post them because they're so funny. And then Slade, my husband, trying to do Leah's hair, which was a wig. And he's like, no, we can make it look great. And he really tried. It was very funny trying to have him comb out that wig. Oy. So, and I have pictures of that too. All right. So let's talk Halloween. The biggest question we got, and we'll sum it up here. Tamara writes, how do we best manage the Halloween candy haul? And Moira, you kind of started in on that with the buying back some of it, but there are lots of different ways to do this. Why don't we jump in with the easiest one, which is to manage it, to eat it, right?
Right. And it's really important for people to understand that. Thankfully, with the insulin that we use today, you can treat things like Halloween just like you would any other quote unquote holiday. And I also want to mention to anyone who it's their first time going into Halloween with their child with diabetes, I can almost guarantee you their child will be low, because every single kid with diabetes on the planet, I swear on my life, is low on Halloween night. I don't know if it's the excitement or whatever. So first of all, don't worry about bolusing them before they go out because they're going to eat candy. I would err on the side of let them eat stuff while they're going and then figure out when you get back what you want to do. But I think as far as candy goes, how did you manage it before? People must get sick of me saying that, but how did you manage it before? Did you let your child come home and eat the whole thing of candy in one night? Probably not, right? So what you have to do is what every good parent does. Take out all the Snickers for yourself.
Yeah, we call that the parent tax, but I get anything with coconut. I get all the Almond Joy. Nobody likes those anyway but me.
So what do you do? Did you let him have what he wanted to have, or did you kind of pull it all aside? Because I think the eating of the candy is actually kind of secondary of the whole Halloween experience.
Oh,
right?
without a doubt. Yeah. And we'll talk about that. So just real quick for what we did, because we tried lots of different things. I was in a panic. We had almost a whole year, so I was very comfortable with diabetes. Well, as comfortable as you can be after a year. It does change even more so after that and gets better. But I thought we knew what we were doing. He did wear an insulin pump by the following Halloween. But I decided that we were going to take all the candy away and give him a prize. And that worked out really, really well. I gave him a Play-Doh set that first year. And all the candy kind of disappeared. And my daughter, I think we gave her a couple of pieces. We did it kind of as we had done before with her. But it didn't feel right. It felt kind of weird. So the following year, we did the buyback like you did. And we also, you could trade it in for a toy. And we did that for both kids now, if you want to trade it in. But then after a year or two, it's you know what? Just have a couple of pieces of candy tonight. I'm not buying any more toys. It's more expensive.
Right.
And it's just a pain. And they didn't care about the candy so much anyway, as we already mentioned. It's not about that. So it became really easy to say, all right, we're going to dose for a couple of pieces tonight. We're going to put the rest of it away. We only had dessert. As the kids were growing up, we had I think 3 out of 7 nights we would allow dessert. It became like a family decision. And so if you wanted that for your dessert, you could have, 3 little fun-sized pieces of candy that night. And then after about 2 weeks, we just threw it out or gave it away because they forget. So we tried everything. I think it's important to kind of sit down and think, what works for my family? What feels right for my family?
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say to you. And there probably are people who it feels right to sort of do a trade like that. Another thing I know in our community, the dentists in our town collect the candy and send it to the troops.
Right.
So there are families without diabetes in their family who do things like that because they just don't want to have it. Frankly, for me, I don't want to have it in the house because I get tempted.
Oh, right?
Try to eat better. But I think it's a really good idea to look at Halloween night sort of the same way you would look at as a slumber party or a sporting event, and talk to your endocrinology team ahead of time, but err on the side of them being a little higher if possible, because like I said, I can almost guarantee you they're going to be low at some point. It's like the goblins do it or something, right?
Let's talk about that, because I think, as we've said a couple of times, it's not just about the candy. For Benny especially, and for Leah as well, it's all about, I get to run around the neighborhood in the dark at night with my friends, and they walk and run a ton. I don't care if you just have one little cul-de-sac. You're walking down the street, they're running up and down the driveway. Right? They're walking a lot, and they can go low. Some kids go high from the excitement. Some kids go low, as you said, but it's a lot of exercise, especially for little kids.
Right? So my recommendation for that is hire a nurse who can run to run with them. I'm just kidding. I would imagine, like all things, being able to see your child's blood sugar, as many people can now, will make that a little bit easier, but also a little more worrisome. And so again, I would suggest talking to your endocrinology team ahead of time and asking them if there are any parameters you should be concerned with. Most of them are going to say, let a kid be a kid, let them go do what they want to do, err on the side of being a little higher, and fix it all later if it needs to be fixed. Let them run around in the dark with their friends, and try not to worry too much, because they're going to be fine, right?
Oh, absolutely. One of our neighbors always offered water bottles. And my daughter summed that up by, the first year you see that, you think that's the dumbest thing ever. Who's going to drink water? That's a lame Halloween treat. She goes, the second year, you're desperate to get to that house because you run around so much. You're hot into your costume. You're tired. So everybody loves that house.
That's not a bad idea.
Right back to our Halloween conversation in just a moment. But first, Diabetes Connections is brought to you by Dexcom. And it's hard to think of something that's changed our diabetes management as much as the Dexcom Share and Follow apps. The amazing thing to me is how it's helped us talk less about diabetes. That is the wonderful thing about Share and Follow. As a caregiver, parent, spouse, you can help the person with diabetes manage in the way that works for your individual situation. Internet connectivity is required to access Dexcom Follow. Separate Follow app required. To learn more, go to diabetes-connections.com and click on the Dexcom logo. Now back to Ask the DMom with me and Moira. All right, so let's get to another question. This is Martha, who says, how do I carb count? For those little individual candies, there's no nutritional information. And then how do I account for what the total is likely to be?
Well, you can find resources. People have looked into this and done it. And I know that Project Blue November, which is on Facebook and also online at projectbluenovember.com, posts a list of common candies and what their carb counts are. And those have been verified. So I would suggest pulling that. Another thing is, as far as the whole night, you just gotta roll the dice. You know, this is all kind of a crapshoot anyway sometimes. And so if you say, well, here's where he's at now, and I know he tends to go low when he's excited, he tends to go high, I'm just going to work around that and then deal with it later. I think after is better. And what if they come home and say, I have no idea how many pieces of candy I ate. I didn't keep track. You could ask them, have a pocket and ask them to stick wrappers in the pocket so that you can get them when they get back. But if they don't know, then wait an hour and a half, see where their blood sugar is, and then correct from there.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think
what would you do?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think a lot of kids, you can definitely ask them to save the wrappers, but, you know, they may eat more than you have thought they would, and they may not want to show you because they're embarrassed or they're worried. That's an individual thing that, you know, you want to encourage your kids to be honest. But at the same time, depending on how you all manage, just beware that there should be a lot of room on Halloween for wiggle room. Listen, in the beginning, I was a maniac for carb counting. I was counting every carb that went into ketchup, green peas.
Yeah.
I was a maniac. And it takes a while to realize that it's not an exact science at all. Even nutritionally labeled things, it doesn't matter. They're always off by a bit. Your child's body processes them different than the other kid's body. So it's all a guess. It's all an art form, not just on Halloween. But I will say something that I'm surprised that many more people don't know, and it's not a failing or ignorance, it's just an educational thing that isn't taught sometimes, is that not all candy is created equal in terms of digestion. So if you're looking at a Snickers bar, if your parents haven't taken it away from you, you know, it's going to break down more slowly than something like Skittles, which is pure sugar. Or does anybody eat Necco wafers? Or I'm trying to
that
think.
Company, that's a Massachusetts food, and I can tell you that company went out of business, so you will not be having to pick out the Necco wafers this year.
But, you know, you think about the foods that are more pure dextrose, like any kind of food that dissolves easily. That's going to hit you more quickly. Those are great to treat lows. Airheads, fruit roll-ups, that sour gummies. But the chocolates and the nougat and the delicious almond joys that I love so much, those break down more slowly. So they're not great to treat lows, but also they're going to show up later. In other words, you might treat, but then they might still go a little bit higher later on. So I don't say that to make you think, oh, now I got to worry about this thing on Halloween. It's just the way the body digests and the way things break down. It's not always taught to people. So it's one of those things to think about as you're accounting for the total. Then you also have to think about exercise, how much running around did they do, how much chocolate did they eat versus Skittles. So all of this to say in a very long-winded way, I agree with you, Moira, in that, you know, sometimes you kind of have to wait till it's over and then fix it. Yeah. Because otherwise you're going to be chasing lows all night.
Yeah, I'll give you a perfect example of that. That's not Halloween. It was the first time we were at something where they were making s'mores. And again, this is in the days of MPH and regular, so I just couldn't even imagine. So I called my RCDE and asked her, what do I do? How do I dose for this? And she said, that's easy. Have fun at the party. Let her run around the campfire, eat all the s'mores she wants. 2 hours later, 3 hours later, check her blood sugar and correct her, and then move on to the next day. And it was like, what?
Right.
And so I could have gotten out in a perfect world, you would get out the box and make sure she only had 2 exact graham crackers that didn't have a little extra corner on it. And, the marshmallow didn't drip. So you got the carb right. But in the reality of things, sometimes you just got to punt a little bit, and that's okay.
I wonder if the length of time a marshmallow is cooked affects the carb count or the digestion. Yeah.
I like to burn it and peel the burn off and eat it, and then burn it again and peel it off again. But anyway, back to Halloween.
I'd be willing to experiment on myself for that. Okay, the next question we have is from Kim, who says, this is a tough one. We are newly diagnosed, and my daughter doesn't even want to go trick-or-treating. I still want her to have a fun experience. Oh, gosh, Kim, my heart goes out to you because maybe your daughter thinks this is one of those, my life is over because I have diabetes. I can't do anything. And it's really up to us to show them that they can. But at the same time, Moira, how do you kind of tell a kid, you must have fun. You have to go trick-or-treating.
Yeah. So if she liked Halloween in past years, then I would say it's going to be really good to just push her out there and make her do it. And I would say that if you have any parameters or concerns, I might not even share them with her. I might say to her, go do what you did last year and I will work around you. Be the silent fixer. If she never really liked it in the first place, then, I remember one year I had a terrible accident when I was a kid and I was in a cast up to my hip for a long time. And I just didn't want to go trick-or-treating. Yeah. And I sat and gave candy out at the door and I saw everyone I knew. I had a blast.
Yeah.
So if she doesn't really want to do it and it in your heart, I would not push it. But if she always liked it before, I would say, just get out there and you're going to see. This will be a great lesson for her, especially newly diagnosed, to see firsthand that she truly can live her same life with just some extra steps, right? Yeah. Because that's what they think, it's over. That's what we think when they're diagnosed. Right. Everything's over. I'll never go skiing again. I'll never do anything. And those first times might not feel quite right, but they lead you down the path to getting to the place where it feels right again.
Yeah. And Kim, I would also ask her, what about it is worrying you?
Yeah.
If it's something specific, like I'm just afraid that if I eat all the candy, I'm going to feel sick or I'm not going to want to do this. But she does still want to go door to door with her friends. Then you can find a way. Look, this is our first year. Let's take all the candy and donate it. Let's put it aside. Or let's not worry about the candy on Halloween. Maybe a couple nights later we can have a science experiment where we eat it, or we do something like that. But kind of figure out maybe there is one thing she's worried about. Maybe she is worried about going low when she's walking around the neighborhood. And if you can kind of fine tune it and figure that out, maybe it'll help. But I'm with Moira. I think Moira, we all are we're just scared of everything. And how will life possibly be the same again? And it's not the same, but it's a lot the same. But it doesn't seem like it can be for those first few weeks or months.
I always tell people the first year, everything is new. All these things that you've done a million times before seem completely new. And that's the way Halloween seems to this girl and this mom. And you get through it the first time. And like I said, it feels a little weird. But then the second year, you're a little more used to it. And the third year, you're like, we got this. So you just kind of got to get through this. And it sounds to me like maybe the girl really liked Halloween before. And I think that with your advice and just with a little pushing, just let her go and make sure she knows. And if her endocrinologist or CDE has to tell her that instead of you, have someone tell her, look, if you eat all the candy that you get, which would probably be impossible, and you come home, it will still be okay. We can still fix it. And if you feel low when you're out there, well, you've got your low supply right in your trick-or-treat bag. All you do is eat it. You don't even have to check if you don't want to. It'll be fine. She needs assurance.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's hard. All right. So one of the things I wanted to bring up, it's not so much a question for parents of kids with type 1, but gosh, our well-meaning neighbors. The first year I went out with Benny, we have a really wonderful neighborhood, and everybody in the block knew. Of course, it was almost a year already. They all knew he had type 1. They had seen him at the bus stop. He had gone to people's houses with me when he was a baby. And, we had talked about it a lot. So a bunch of people tried to give us sugar-free candy Or, oh, wait right here, I have something special for you. And then when everybody else was getting, Milk Duds and Airheads, here's a special pencil for you, Benny. And it was so funny because it had never occurred to me that would happen. And he was not happy with the pencil. He was also not happy when I took away all of the sugar-free food because thank goodness I had been warned. If you don't know, sugar-free candy can really mess with the bathroom situation. 1 or 2 pieces might be okay for you or your child, but more than that is not going to be a fun stomach experience. So what I did after that was try to tell my neighbors, and I didn't do it right away because I want, you can't say, hey, last night you really messed up my Halloween. You got to be nice about it and wait. So the following year I did a little preemptive at the bus stop, and I started saying things like, oh, it's been so great. This year has been terrific. And I learned that sugar-free candy is really not good for Benny. And I learned that, and I tried to really tell them, and 1 or 2 people still tried to do it. But gosh, were you ever in that situation with Lauren?
So yes, but it was a little different. And I'm thinking as she got older, how I handled it. First of all, those neighbors are wonderful people to think of just our child when they're worrying about Halloween. And I should premise with my neighborhood is the one that people practically bust their kids into. 14 bags of candy and I turn the lights off. It's insanity. So when we first went around the neighborhood the first year, of course, everyone dumped candy so that she'd get money. But she always kind of felt like even if she wanted the candy instead of the pencil, it really touched her that someone thought about her. Yeah. And so it didn't really bother her. However, sugar-free candy is gross. So I guess it depends on what kind of neighborhood you have. If you have a neighborhood like ours was and you know everyone, then like you said, at the bus stop, or if you have a neighborhood, now everybody has a neighborhood Facebook group, just kind of say, hey, heads up, just so you know, Lauren can get the same thing as other kids get, and we really appreciate you thinking of her. Just give her the same smile and whatever you're giving anyone else, and thank you.
Yeah.
If you don't really know people and they heard and they did it, I would just encourage your child to understand that they were trying to be compassionate. I mean, I think it's kind of lovely that someone would take the time to think, even if we have to throw the sugar-free candy away.
Oh, yeah. It comes from a place of concern. It comes from a place of compassion, as you're saying. It was just one of those things that it really surprised me. I remember that first year thinking, Benny had no idea. He was 3. He didn't know the difference between the sugar-free and the regular. But it was one of those things.
But he knew the difference between a pencil.
Oh, he did not want that pencil. And that was from someone, although I really should mention, that was from someone who has become one of our dearest friends because, unfortunately, a couple of years later, her 2 adult children were diagnosed, one right after the other. Oh my gosh,
20s. They caught it from Benny?
Exactly.
Just kidding.
Yeah, it's all that pencil comes down.
So I guess that the best thing you can do is kind of the people give them a heads up and do it in a kind way and say, you're never going to believe this, but I learned that Lauren can have the same candy as other kids. She just has to take insulin. So Don't worry about it. And you're all awesome.
And if you have close friends or they're okay with some not suitable for work stuff, I'll put a link in the Facebook group. There is a hysterical Amazon product post about sugar-free candy. Have you seen the sugar-free gummy bears? Okay.
Yes.
So I'll post that so you can kind of
hilarious.
read through. And if your friends are up for a laugh and they have to be okay with some potty humor, literally.
Yeah.
I'll link that up as well.
That's perfect.
The only other thing I want to say for Halloween and diabetes is the costumes. And I didn't even think about this until Benny was a little bit older because we didn't do elaborate costumes. I'm not that kind of crafty, wonderful mom. And we always had like a zippy sweater, like the flounder thing was a sweatshirt. His next thing it was a rocket ship from the Little Einsteins TV show, but it went on like overalls. It was fantastic. But if you're trying to have diabetes gear under your little kid's costume, that can get a little difficult. But my advice is let that go as well. It might be hard to dig out the pump, from under the Iron Man suit, which I did have to do.
Oh,
but
you so cute too.
But you can do it, and it's okay. It's okay not to be able to get to the pump every second. I know people with Omnipod are like, that's why we have a remote. And I get it. But then you have to take the remote with you trick-or-treating. So there's ups and downs to everything. Just, let them put that costume on and have the bulge wherever the pump is on their body. They don't care. They just want to put the Iron Man suit on. So, there's not really any advice there other than we know it's not the best, but you just go for it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? The trick-or-treating doesn't go on as long as it feels like it's going on. Yeah. I mean, it's only an hour or so the kids are out and around. So if you don't have access to their pump for an hour.
Right.
It's fine.
That's good stuff. Okay. I know we're actually, we're a couple of weeks away from Halloween, but that costume talk just gave me an idea. I would love to see your kids' Halloween costumes. So yeah, as we get closer, I'll put some stuff in the Facebook group. It's Diabetes Connections, the group. I'll put Benny in his flounder costume and his Iron Man costume. And then if you want to put anything else in there, I would love to see your kids on Halloween. So we'll start a big thread on that closer to Halloween. And then I think, Maura, as we're talking, it occurs to me that another topic, and maybe this is good for November as we get closer to Thanksgiving, is the family conversations around diabetes. And I'm thinking specifically about like my aunt who, can I still make my blah, blah, blah pie? Or can I still bring the sweet potatoes with the marshmallows on top? And so how do you handle all of the questions that are going to come up? So let's get questions about that, and we can talk about that in November.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah, because
Our first Thanksgiving diabetes was very new to us because, as I said, Lauren was diagnosed. And again, the insulins back then demanded that you only eat at a certain time. So I talked to my in-law family member who was hosting Thanksgiving and asked them if they could eat at exactly whatever time it was. And they said, absolutely. So we showed up and they were all eating. And I'm like, you don't understand. You don't understand. So thankfully, that's not a thing anymore. But I think that it could be a great opportunity to kind of positively educate your family. So this will be really good to talk about next month. Yes, yes, yes.
I'm just cracking up thinking about that because we all have those moments where we're trying to put on a brave face, but it's like, no.
It just broke my heart. And you know what? As always, there was a solution. I paged the endo or the CD or whoever and talked to them and figured it out. But just when I walked in that door, I was just like, well, it's my first holiday. It all worked out.
Excellent. All right. Well, are you giving out candy this Halloween? Is it still crazy in your neighborhood?
It is insane. And we built this house a very long time ago before my daughter with diabetes was born. And the neighborhood built, we were one of the first houses, and it has turned over for the most part to young families. So I am now officially the scary old lady near the bus stop. But we have the biggest hill in the neighborhood. And last winter, some teenage boys asked me if they could sled on our hill because we have spotlights on it. And so all the kids in the neighborhood sledded on the hill all winter.
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
I think I'm safe from being egged.
Oh, I love it. All right. Well, thank you so much, as always, for jumping on. It's always great to talk to you. And this was really fun. I love this topic. I'm that mom that opens the door now and you're so cute. And I remember, look how big you've gotten. I mean, I just love Halloween because I get to see all the little kids in the neighborhood.
I know. When my older daughter went to college, I didn't cry. She's a very blonde girl, which ties into the story. And I didn't cry. And my friends were like, why are you crying? And I said, well, because she's doing what she's supposed to do. And on Halloween, the doorbell rang for the 700 millionth time. And I opened the door and there was this little blonde ringlet girl in a princess costume. And she just looked up and went, trick or treat. And I burst into tears. The mother's like, you don't have to give her your candy if you don't want to. I'm like, that's not it.
Oh my God. We'll leave it there. More, I will talk to you soon.
You're listening to Diabetes Connections with Stacey Sims.
As we get closer to Halloween, I'm going to link up an episode I did, I think it's 2 years ago now, with Kelly Kunik, who was diagnosed on Halloween. Yeah, she had to spend Halloween in the hospital. And Halloween was her favorite holiday and still is. So she shares really just a terrific story. And Kelly, who's just got an amazing sense of humor and a really incredible family story when it comes to diabetes. She shares everything with us. It was a wonderful interview. She's such a good advocate now, such an active person in the community. It was great to talk to her. And I didn't know about her Halloween diagnosis. I feel like I've known her for years and I didn't know that. So I'll link that up closer to Halloween. But I hope some of the advice that Moira and I shared can help you out. And if you have any feedback, just pop into the Facebook group, or you can always email me, Stacey at diabetes-connections.com. All right, it is time for Tell Me Something Good, brought to you by Real Good Foods. They have such a great variety of foods, and you can order online if you want to kind of pick and choose among all of them. But what's wonderful about Real Good Foods is that they are available at your grocery store. And if you're not sure where, if you haven't seen them in your grocery store freezer, they have a locator. They have a store locator on their website. And I just typed in my zip code and boom, 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 all these arrows and dots popped up. And they are everywhere. They're in Food Lion, Harris Teeter, they're in Publix, they're in Walmart. All of these stores near me where I can go and very conveniently get the products that we love. The pizza, the poppers, the breakfast sandwiches, the stuffed chicken. Have you had that yet? The Italian entrees. They are low in carb, high in protein, really easy to prepare. You're just heating them up most of the time. It's convenient, but it's good, convenient food. It is real. It's real good food. It really is. It's easy to see where they got the name. Find out more. Just go to diabetes-connections.com and click on the Real Good Foods logo. As many of you know, I am the admin of not just the Facebook group for the podcast, but one for my local area. For several years now, we started with 4 people, and now we have more than 700. It is a parenting group of, parents of children with type 1 diabetes in the Charlotte, North Carolina area. And one of the moms posted such a great video that I really wanted to share. Now, what's nice about this is you don't have to see it, which is why I'm playing it on the podcast, but I will post it in the Facebook group if you want to check it out. And this is from Nicole. She says, I am very proud of my T1D son. This disease will not stop him doing what he loves. He was diagnosed at age 11. Now he's 15. And what's going on here is a drum section of a marching band. You'll hear it start out. But when you just hear one drummer, this kid puts a blindfold on and plays. Listen. How about that? As I said, I'll put the video in the Facebook group. I just thought that was awesome. And you should see the look that he and his friend give each other right before he starts playing. It's great. Nicole, thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate it. Our other Tell Me Something Good story is kind of a follow-up. A few weeks ago, really over the summer, we told you about the I Hear You campaign. This was the brainchild of Heather Walker, and it was part of her doctorate research. She put together a group of people in the diabetes community to come up with a campaign. And it was all about listening and supporting people living with and affected by diabetes. So the hashtag rolled out in August. It was hashtag I Hear You. And it was about listening to each other. It was about spreading support, letting people know we were here for them. And we talked about it because when Heather said she wanted to do something for her doctorate research that was not just a paper, something that would have an action component to it. And the follow-up is that Heather Walker successfully defended her doctoral dissertation at the end of September. So now we are calling her Dr. Heather Walker. So congratulations, Dr. Walker. And we appreciate all you do in the community. But the amount of work that has to have gone into this, I have no idea. I have so much respect. I'm thrilled for her. Wow. Congratulations. I can't wait to see what you do with this now for the community. But what an accomplishment. Enjoy it and congratulations. If you've got some good news from the diabetes community, let me know. You can post it in the Facebook group. I usually ask for good news stories, but more people are just posting them themselves or hitting me up on email. That's great too. Stacey at diabetes-connections.com. And you can tell me something good. Once October rolled around, I knew it was going to be busy, but man, I feel like we are now chugging along. Although I say that every week. Don't I say I'm always busy? Are you busy? Don't we feel like every single week it's crazy? But it's all about travel for me right now, because with the book out, I've been asked to speak more and I have a lot more going on. So just back from Falls Church this weekend, I'm actually going to a podcasting conference. I'm really excited about this. It's a women's only podcasting conference. It's She Podcasts. It's in Atlanta. So I'll be there for this weekend. Then I have events in Asheville, North Carolina for the book. We have JDRF events here in the Charlotte, North Carolina area in the end of October. First weekend of November, Take Control of Your Diabetes Conference is here. Then I'm going to Florida. I'm going to the Port St. Lucie, Stuart area for Macy's Believers. Then we have 2 local events, book signings, that kind of thing. I think we're going to take a little bit of a break in December, but in January, I have another local JDRF event and one in Columbia, South Carolina, and it's kind of snowballing from there. So if you have events you'd like me to come to or take part in for 2020, please go to the website, diabetes-connections.com, and click on the community tab, and that'll show you what events are coming up. And it'll also give you a form you can fill out. I still feel kind of weird, like fill out my official form, but it really does make it a lot easier. And if you go over there, you can kind of see the presentations I do and what I've done before. Makes it easier for everybody. All right. Thank you so much to my editor, John Buchanan from Audio Editing Solutions. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Stacey Sims. I'll see you back here next week. Quick disclosure, at times I may mention Tandem Diabetes Care. However, I am not compensated by Tandem for my actions, and Tandem does not support or control this content. I have created the content, and it is based on my personal experiences and observations.
Diabetes Connections is a production of Stacey Sims Media. All rights reserved, all wrongs avenged.